I want to talk about the core systems influencing fertility, because in what I see is we're not just talking about fertility, but fatty liver disease, chronic illness, inflammation, brain fog, all of these other health issues that people are seeing. They're connected to hormones, thyroid, liver detoxification ability, inflammation and toxins, the nervous system. There's all of these other things that are influencing our health. It's not just take a pill and you're going to get rid of your ailment. And fertility is the top of the top, because if we can't take care of our own body, we're not gonna, your body's gonna say, okay, you can't even take care of yourself. We're not gonna give you a child to support. So you have to get all these core systems in line for that fertility. So can you talk about how those things influence fertility?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And I would go, when I'm looking at this from a clinical perspective, what I'm actually doing, because you see, fertility really is a proxy. It's not the outcome of fertility is obviously a baby, but the underlying issues that occur in the body that are preventing the outcome to be delivered is metabolic health. And so, really, and you've touched on all of those things. So, if we have inflammation, oxidative stress, liver dysfunction, you name it, insulin resistance, diabetes, all of the modern health conditions, cardiovascular disease, all of the modern health conditions and underlying biochemical factors that don't align to deliver optimal health is going to be coming down to metabolic dysfunction. So, the number one way to optimize fertility is to optimize metabolic function and metabolic health. If we do that, sure, there will still be some cleaning up to do from the perspective of, immunological components, because that's almost a separate way of also addressing and supporting metabolic function, but it's individual, because some people may not have the exposure of infections and microorganisms that's going to be causing the type of metabolic dysfunction that then requires us to address metabolic factors in a different way. So the majority of ways in which, when people think about, what are the things that I need to do to improve my fertility, there are two things that I will say based on this very topic. The first is that act pregnant now to get pregnant later.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, within your body, 50% of that healthy little baby you want to create, whether you are male or female, is already in place. So if you were pregnant right this second, and I was to ask you, what are all of the things that you would absolutely start doing or stop doing in order to be able to have a healthy baby? What are they? Most people can enumerate lots of different things that they would start doing or stop doing to improve their health, their container, so that they are actually gestating the healthiest possible child. That is what people need to start doing right now.
Yeah.
Really simply, right? So, and that will be differential, because some person or one person might be a couch potato, and they might, while sitting on the couch, like to eat lots of sweets. Another person might actually just go running on a main road, which is affected by lots of toxins, and, like you name it, you will find in a main road. And so, therefore, those exposures and the way in which we would address those two different people is different, right? Like if I was to say to you, if you were pregnant, would you put yourself in the middle of pollution to be able to go and do your exercise? No, you absolutely would not, right? Because you're thinking about, oh, how could this impact my baby? That's the kind of thinking that is required to optimize fertility, because you have to think, okay, oh, if I was pregnant right now, would that impact my baby? If the answer is yes, don't do it. If I need to add something that I need to do in my day to day. Is that going to impact my health? Is that going to impact the health of my baby in a positive way? Yes. Well, then that's something that I need to be consistent in doing, right? So that's the first step. The second step is asking, okay, if I'm going to be focusing on acting pregnant now to get pregnant later, what are the things that I can actually focus on in terms of improving metabolic health specifically? And we know these days, thanks to research, we know that a lot of the improvement in terms of metabolic health actually comes from mitochondrial health, right? And cellular mitochondrial health throughout the entire body. Now, where do we have the most numbers of mitochondria in the body? Muscle, right? So as we age, if we are losing muscle mass, if we are having dysfunctional mitochondrial impact, or if we either don't have the type of stimulation that ensures that our mitochondria are working well because we don't have enough muscle, or the muscle that we have is not biologically as active as it could be, etc., we are leaving a huge opportunity for fertility optimization and, in fact, health optimization on the table, full stop, right? So there's a lot of evidence that the way that I like to think about muscle and that mitochondrial biogenesis that you get from aerobic training and from the building of like resistance training, from the building of muscle, the way that I like to think of that function within the body from a biochemical perspective is as the air filter of the body, right? Because essentially what mitochondria are doing is it's reducing that oxidative stress, reducing that inflammatory response. And so the way in which we enhance that process is by putting in place the types of things that is going to improve muscle building and muscle function. Exercise, rest, all of the things that essentially are going to ensure that the body's operating at its peak function is going to then, of course, be that foundation that's needed for all the other biochemical and biological effects to operate in the best possible way.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I talk so much about muscle being that organ of longevity. And you want to live these long lives and improve the quality of life as you age. I look at my parents, I say, you make sure you're walking, work with your trainer. You still need to work on that muscle, especially as we're getting older. But no one talks about it and the importance for fertility. No one talks about it at this stage of life. And of course, it's important. And those muscles,
Especially for PCOS,
yes,
that's
because
one of the things.
yep, those muscles are sponges for the carbs and the sugars that you are eating. And I have always loved working out. I grew up in a family where it was not really an option. You were in a sport, choose your sport, but you were in a sport. And I took to it, and it was always just such a fun thing for me. I love team sports and all of that. And I've taken it to, every day of my life. And on the days that I'm tired, I adjust my workout. On the days that I've got more energy, I adjust my workout. But it is a non-negotiable as part of my daily routine. And I love that you're talking about it because no one it's also helps with stress. It helps with hormones. It helps with the blood sugar metabolism, like you're talking about, but it helps with all of these other core factors that affect fertility.
100%.